It's 4:14 in the morning, December 8, 2000. A bank employee walks past a security camera at the corner of Haddington Road and Baggot Street in Dublin. He's 22 years old. He's walking home alone. And behind him, walking in perfect synchronization with his pace, is a figure dressed entirely in black. The figure stays exactly 50 feet back. Never closer, never farther. 3 minutes later, Trevor Deely disappears forever. What makes this case uniquely haunting isn't just that Trevor vanished. It's that we can watch it happen, frame by frame. The CCTV footage exists. The timestamp is there. The man in black is visible, real, documented. And yet, for nearly 25 years, no one has been able to identify him. No one has been able to explain why he was there. And no one has been able to find a single trace of Trevor Deely after that final camera captured him walking into the dark. This isn't a case where someone simply went missing. This is a case where someone was followed, where someone was possibly watched for hours before they disappeared, where the last known image of a young man shows him being stalked through the empty streets of Dublin in the dead of night. And the question that still keeps investigators awake: did Trevor know he was being followed? Did he sense it in those final moments? Or did he walk forward, headphones on, thinking only about getting home, completely unaware that someone was matching his every step? Because there's another detail, another piece of footage from 35 minutes earlier. At 3:35 a.m., that same figure, the man in black, appears outside the office where Trevor works. He approaches Trevor. They talk. The conversation lasts less than a minute. Trevor walks back inside. The man in black walks away, but he doesn't leave. He comes back. And when Trevor finally leaves at 4:14 a.m., the man in black is waiting. Trevor Deely was born on August 15, 1978, in the small town of Naas, County Kildare, about 20 miles southwest of Dublin. He was the youngest of 4 children in a close-knit, working-class family. His father, Michael, worked in construction. His mother, Anne, devoted herself to raising their children in a home that was, by all accounts, stable, loving, and typical of small-town Ireland in the 1980s. Trevor's childhood was unremarkable in the most beautiful way. He played hurling and football with the local GAA club. He spent summers exploring the Kildare countryside with his siblings. He was the kind of boy who was always outdoors, always moving, always exploring. His older brother later recalled that Trevor was never the loudest in the room, but he was always present, always watching, always thinking. He had an analytical mind. Even as a child, Trevor loved puzzles. He loved taking things apart to see how they worked. He was fascinated by structure, by process, by the logic of systems. It made sense, then, that he gravitated toward business and finance as he got older. Trevor attended secondary school at Naas CBS, where he was a decent but not exceptional student. His teachers described him as polite, hard-working, and well-liked. He wasn't the type to cause trouble. He wasn't the type to draw attention. He simply went about his life with quiet competence, a trait that would later define his professional reputation. After finishing school, Trevor enrolled at the Institute of Technology Talent, where he studied business. He wasn't interested in flashy careers or high-risk ambition. He wanted stability. He wanted a solid job, a good income, and a life built on reliability. And by the time he graduated in 1999, he had exactly that. In early 2000, at the age of 21, Trevor was hired by Bank of Ireland Asset Management, or BIAM, as a financial consultant. The position was based in Dublin, and it marked a major step forward in his life. He was no longer a student. He was no longer living in Naas. He was an adult, working in the capital, earning a professional salary, and building a future. Trevor rented an apartment in the suburb of Templeogue, about 4 miles south of the city center. He commuted into the BIAM offices on Wilton Terrace every day. He was good at his job. Colleagues described him as diligent, responsible, and easy to work with. He didn't drink much. He didn't party excessively. He was simply a young man doing what young men are supposed to do: work hard, build a life, and figure out who you're becoming. But Trevor wasn't all work and no play. He loved music. He loved going to pubs with friends. He had a girlfriend, a woman named Siobhan, who he'd been seeing for a few months. By all accounts, the relationship was going well. He was happy. He was optimistic. His family later described him as being in the best phase of his life that December. And here's the thing about Trevor Deely. He was cautious. He was careful. He wasn't the type to take unnecessary risks. He didn't wander into dangerous areas. He didn't make reckless decisions. He was methodical, thoughtful, and aware of his surroundings. Which is why what happens next is so confounding. Because on the night of December 7th, 2000, Trevor Deely made a series of small, ordinary decisions. Decisions that any 22-year-old would make. And those decisions led him directly into a nightmare that has never ended. To understand what happened to Trevor, you need to understand the Dublin he lived in. Not the Dublin of today, gentrified, globalized, expensive, but the Dublin of the year 2000. A city in transition. A city caught between the old Ireland and the new. The Celtic Tiger was in full roar. Ireland's economy was booming. Foreign investment was flooding in. Tech companies were setting up European headquarters in Dublin. Jobs were plentiful. The unemployment rate had plummeted. For the first time in generations, young Irish people didn't have to emigrate to find work. They could stay. They could build lives at home. Dublin was growing fast. Too fast, some said. The infrastructure couldn't keep up. Traffic was getting worse. Housing was getting expensive. The city was filling with newcomers, Europeans, Americans, immigrants from all over. The social fabric was shifting. But with economic prosperity came other changes. Nightlife exploded. The Temple Bar District became famous. Pubs and clubs stayed open later. Drugs became more available. Crime, while still relatively low compared to other European capitals, was rising. Dublin had always been a safe city, but by 2000, that safety was starting to feel conditional. There were muggings. There were assaults. There were occasional reports of violent crime, especially late at night in certain areas. The police, called the Gardaí in Ireland, were stretched thin. CCTV was still relatively new. Most streets didn't have cameras. Most crimes went unsolved simply because there was no footage, no witnesses, no evidence. And here's the crucial context. In December 2000, Dublin was still a city where you could walk home alone at 4 a.m. and feel reasonably safe. It wasn't common, but it wasn't unthinkable, especially for a young man, especially in a relatively upscale area like the South City Centre. Trevor worked on Wilton Terrace, just off Baggot Street, one of Dublin's main commercial corridors. It was a business district, offices, banks, quiet at night, not a high-crime area, not a place where people vanished. His apartment in Templogue was about 4 miles away. On a normal night, Trevor would take a taxi home. But on the night of December 7th, into the early hours of December 8th, taxis were scarce. It was the week of the company Christmas party. Everyone was out. The streets were packed. And Trevor, like thousands of others that night, found himself stranded in the city center with no easy way to get home. So he made a decision that thousands of others also made that night. He started walking. The week leading up to Trevor's disappearance was, by all accounts, completely normal. He went to work every day. He met up with friends. He spoke to his girlfriend. He called his family in Naas. There were no signs of distress. No signs of conflict. No sudden changes in behavior. On Wednesday, December 6th, Trevor went out with colleagues for a casual drink. Nothing excessive. Just a pint or two after work. He was in good spirits. He joked around. He made plans for the weekend. He talked about Christmas, about going home to Naas, about seeing his family. On Thursday, December 7th, Trevor worked a normal day. The BIAM offices were buzzing with pre-holiday energy. The company Christmas party was scheduled for that night, and everyone was looking forward to it. Trevor wasn't a huge drinker, but he enjoyed socializing with his coworkers. He was planning to attend. That morning, he called Siobhan. They talked about meeting up over the weekend. Everything seemed fine. Everything seemed normal. At some point during the day, Trevor realized he had a problem. He'd left his keys at work the previous night. He needed to retrieve them before the party, or he wouldn't be able to get into his apartment when he got home. So he made a mental note. After the party, swing by the office, grab the keys, then head home.
It was a small, mundane detail. The kind of thing you forget 5 minutes after you think of it.
But it's the reason Trevor was at his office at 4 a.m. It's the reason he was on CCTV. It's the reason we know, with absolute certainty, that something went wrong. The BIAM Christmas party was held at Buck Whaley's, a pub and nightclub on Leeson Street, about half a mile from the office. It was a typical corporate Christmas party: drinks, music, mingling, laughter. Trevor arrived around 8 p.m. He was relaxed. He was smiling. He spent the evening talking to colleagues, having a few drinks, enjoying himself. By all accounts, Trevor wasn't drunk. He had a few pints, maybe 3 or 4 over the course of the evening. But he wasn't stumbling. He wasn't incoherent. He was simply enjoying himself in a responsible, measured way. Around 11 p.m., the party started winding down. Some people went home. Others moved on to different pubs or clubs. Trevor decided to stay out a bit longer. He went to a nearby pub with a small group of coworkers. They had another drink. They talked. They laughed. Around 2:30 a.m., Trevor decided it was time to go home. He said goodbye to his friends and left the pub. He walked toward Baggot Street, looking for a taxi. But there were no taxis. The streets were packed with people trying to get home. Taxis were fully booked. The taxi ranks were empty. Trevor waited. He tried calling taxi companies. Nothing. Around 3 a.m., Trevor made a decision. He would walk to his office, pick up his keys, and then either catch a taxi from there or walk the rest of the way home. It was cold, temperatures were hovering just above freezing, but it was manageable. The walk to the office was only about 10 minutes. From there, he could reassess. So Trevor started walking. At 3:25 a.m., Trevor arrived at the BIAM offices on Wilton Terrace. The building was locked. The lights were off. But Trevor had a keycard that gave him access after hours. He swiped in and walked toward the back entrance. And this is where the CCTV footage begins. The first camera is positioned at the rear of the building, covering the small courtyard area where employees entered and exited. The footage is grainy, black and white, low resolution, typical of the era. But it's clear enough. At 3:25 a.m., Trevor appears on camera. He's wearing a dark jacket, light-colored pants, and a dark knit cap. He's moving purposefully, like someone who knows exactly where they're going. He unlocks the door. He steps inside. 60 seconds later, he reappears. He's holding something small, a set of keys. He locks the door behind him. He starts walking back toward the street. And then, at 3:35 a.m., something strange happens. A figure appears on the edge of the frame. A man. He's dressed entirely in black, black jacket, black pants, dark hair. He walks directly toward Trevor. He approaches him near the gate. They stop. They talk. The conversation is brief. Maybe 30 seconds. Maybe a minute. There's no audio, so we don't know what was said. But body language experts who later analyzed the footage noted a few things. Trevor appears calm. He's not defensive. He's not backing away. The man in black is animated. He gestures. He moves his hands while talking. At one point, Trevor points back toward the office building, as if explaining something or giving directions. Then the conversation ends. Trevor turns and walks back inside the building. The man in black walks away, disappearing off camera to the left. And here's what investigators found so disturbing. Trevor goes back inside for 4 more minutes. He doesn't call anyone. He doesn't alert security. He simply waits. Why? One theory. Trevor was uncomfortable. The man in black made him uneasy, so Trevor went back inside to wait him out, to give him time to leave the area. Another theory. Trevor went back inside for a completely unrelated reason. Maybe to use the bathroom. Maybe to check something. Maybe just to warm up before the long walk home. We don't know. But at 3:39 a.m., Trevor exits the building again. He locks the door. He looks around briefly. He doesn't see the man in black. So he starts walking. He walks north, toward Baggot Street. The camera loses him. For the next 35 minutes, Trevor Deely is not captured on any camera. We don't know where he went. We don't know what he did. We don't know if he stopped anywhere, if he spoke to anyone, if he encountered anyone. All we know is that at 4:14 a.m., he reappears on CCTV one final time. The next camera to capture Trevor is located at the junction of Haddington Road and Baggot Street, about 400 meters from his office. It's a traffic camera, positioned to monitor the intersection. The angle is wide, the resolution is poor, but it's enough. At 4:14 a.m., Trevor Deely walks into frame from the left. He's moving at a steady pace. He's wearing headphones now, small, over-ear headphones connected to a CD player or Walkman in his jacket pocket. He's looking straight ahead. His hands are in his pockets. He looks like any other young person walking home after a night out. He crosses the intersection. He continues walking northwest, toward the suburb of Templeogue. And then, 5 seconds later, another figure enters the frame. The man in black. He's approximately 50 feet behind Trevor. He's walking at the exact same pace. He's following the exact same route. And he stays exactly 50 feet back. Investigators who analyzed the footage noted something chilling. The man in black doesn't speed up. He doesn't slow down. He maintains perfect distance. It's not casual. It's not coincidental. It's deliberate. For 7 seconds, both figures are visible on camera. Then they both walk out of frame, disappearing into the dark. Trevor Deely is never seen again. Trevor's disappearance wasn't immediately noticed. On the morning of December 8th, his absence wasn't alarming. It was a Friday. He'd been out late. Maybe he slept in. Maybe he called in sick. Maybe he went home to Nas early for the weekend. But by Friday afternoon, people started to worry. Trevor didn't show up for work. He didn't answer his phone. His girlfriend, Siobhan, tried calling him multiple times. No answer. His mother called. No answer. By Friday evening, concern had turned into fear. Trevor's family contacted the Gardaí. They reported him missing. They explained that Trevor was responsible, reliable, and not the type to disappear without explanation. They emphasized that something was wrong. The Gardaí took the report seriously, but they weren't panicking yet. Trevor was 22 years old. He'd been out drinking. It had only been a day. People sometimes go off the radar for a day or two after a night out. It happens. But by Saturday, December 9th, the situation had escalated. Trevor's bank account showed no activity. His phone was off. His apartment was empty, untouched, as if he'd never come home. His car was still parked near his apartment. His keys, the keys he'd retrieved from the office, were missing. And then the CCTV footage was discovered. Bank of Ireland Asset Management had security cameras covering the office. On Saturday afternoon, investigators reviewed the footage from the night of December 7th. They saw Trevor arrive at 3:25 a.m. They saw him retrieve his keys. They saw him leave. And they saw the man in black. This changed everything. Because now it wasn't just a missing person case. Now there was a suspect, a witness, a person of interest. The Gardaí immediately began canvassing the area. They reviewed footage from other cameras along Trevor's presumed route. They found the traffic camera at Haddington Road and Baggot Street. They saw Trevor at 4:14 a.m. and they saw the man in black following him. The initial investigation into Trevor Deely's disappearance was, by most accounts, competent but flawed. The Gardaí acted quickly. Within 48 hours, they had reviewed all available CCTV footage, interviewed Trevor's family, friends, and co-workers, conducted searches along his presumed route home, issued a public appeal for information, and identified the man in black as a critical person of interest. But they also made mistakes. Mistakes that would haunt the case for decades. The first mistake, they didn't immediately release the CCTV footage to the public. The images of the man in black weren't made public until weeks later. By then, memories had faded. Witnesses had moved on. The trail had gone cold. The second mistake, they didn't conduct a large-scale search of the route between Baggot Street and Templeogue. There were fields, parks, construction sites, and waterways along that route. Any of them could have been a disposal site, but in those critical first days, when evidence was still fresh, the searches were limited. The third mistake, they didn't secure the CCTV footage from every possible camera along Trevor's route. Some cameras were privately owned. Some businesses didn't realize they had footage. By the time investigators requested it, some footage had already been overwritten. But even with these mistakes, the Gardaí did uncover crucial information. They confirmed Trevor's timeline. They confirmed he left his office at 3:39 a.m. They confirmed he was last seen at 4:14 a.m. walking northwest on Haddington Road. They confirmed he was being followed. They interviewed over 200 people. They received dozens of tips. They chased down every lead. And they found nothing. No body. No witnesses. No physical evidence. No credible sightings after 4:14 a.m. Trevor Deely had simply vanished. The man in black became the focus of the investigation. Every detective, every journalist, every armchair investigator who looked at this case came back to the same question. Who was he? The CCTV footage gave investigators some clues, but not many. The man was approximately 5 feet 10 inches to 6 feet tall, medium build, dark hair, wearing all black, black jacket, black pants, possibly black shoes. Age was difficult to determine from the footage, but investigators estimated he was between 25 and 40 years old. His gait was distinctive. He walked with a slight forward lean, hands often in his pockets. He moved confidently, purposefully, and he knew the area. He knew where the cameras were. He knew the layout of the streets. But who was he? Theory 1. A stranger. Someone who targeted Trevor randomly. Maybe a mugger. Maybe someone looking for an easy victim. Trevor was alone. He was walking through a quiet area. He looked like someone who might have cash, a phone, valuables. But this theory has problems. If the man in black was a mugger, why did he approach Trevor at 3:35 a.m. and then leave? Why wait 35 minutes and then follow him? Why not just attack him at the office? Theory 2. Someone Trevor knew. Maybe a coworker. Maybe an acquaintance. Maybe someone from the party earlier that night. The conversation at 3:35 a.m. seemed casual. Trevor didn't appear threatened. Maybe the man in black was someone Trevor recognized. But investigators interviewed everyone Trevor knew. They cross-referenced alibis. They investigated coworkers, friends, acquaintances. No one matched the description. No one was unaccounted for. Theory 3. A stalker. Someone who had been watching Trevor. Someone who knew his routine. Someone who waited for an opportunity. This theory is supported by the deliberate nature of the following. The man in black didn't rush. He didn't improvise. He maintained perfect distance. He knew what he was doing. But there's no evidence Trevor was being stalked. No one reported seeing the man in black before that night. No one reported strange behavior, unusual encounters, or threatening messages. Theory 4. The man in black was innocent. Maybe he was just another person walking home. Maybe the conversation at 3:35 a.m. was someone asking for directions. Maybe the following at 4:14 a.m. was pure coincidence, two people walking in the same direction. But the Gardaí never bought this theory. The deliberate pacing, the precise distance, the fact that the man in black appeared twice, once at 3:35, then again at 4:14. It was too specific, too calculated. In 2001, the Gardaí released the CCTV images to the public. They asked anyone who recognized the man in black to come forward. Hundreds of tips came in, dozens of names, dozens of possible identifications. Every single one led nowhere. The man in black was never identified. In the months after Trevor's disappearance, the Gardaí conducted extensive searches along his presumed route home. They searched Haddington Road. They searched the Grand Canal. They searched fields and parks. They searched construction sites. They used dogs. They used divers. They used ground-penetrating radar. They found nothing. No body. No clothing. No personal belongings. No sign that Trevor had ever been there. One of the most haunting aspects of this case is the sheer lack of physical evidence. Trevor didn't just disappear. He vanished completely. No blood. No struggle. No witnesses. No trace. Investigators developed a theory. Trevor was likely killed shortly after 4:14 a.m. somewhere between Baggot Street and Templeoak. His body was then moved, possibly by car, and disposed of in a location that hasn't been searched. But where? Ireland is a small country, but it has thousands of potential disposal sites. Bogs, lakes, rivers, forests, quarries, the sea. Without a specific lead, without a witness, without a confession, finding a body in Ireland is nearly impossible. And so the searches eventually stopped. Not because the Gardaí gave up, but because there was nowhere left to look. Trevor's disappearance became a national story in Ireland. His face appeared on newspapers, on television, on posters across Dublin. His family, particularly his mother, Anne, and his siblings, became the public face of the case. They gave interviews. They made appeals. They begged anyone with information to come forward. Anne Deely's grief was profound and public. She spoke openly about the agony of not knowing, about the torture of wondering if her son was alive or dead, about the impossibility of closure. In interviews, she described Trevor as her baby, her youngest, the one who called her every Sunday, the one who always made time for family. And now he was gone. The Irish public responded with overwhelming sympathy. Thousands of people joined search efforts. Thousands more called in tips. Vigils were held. Prayers were said. But sympathy doesn't solve cases. As the months turned into years, media attention faded. The story moved off the front pages. The public moved on. But the Deely family never moved on. They couldn't, because every day that passed without answers was another day of torture. Over the past 2 decades, countless theories have been proposed about what happened to Trevor. Some are plausible, some are outlandish, some are based on evidence, some are pure speculation. Let's examine the major theories in depth. Theory 1. Random attack by the man in black. This is the most widely accepted theory among investigators. The man in black was a stranger who targeted Trevor for reasons unknown: robbery, violence, or something darker. He followed Trevor from the office, attacked him somewhere between Baggot Street and Templeogue, killed him, and disposed of the body. Supporting evidence. The CCTV footage clearly shows the man in black following Trevor. The deliberate pacing suggests intent. Trevor's complete disappearance suggests foul play. Counter evidence. No motive is apparent. Trevor wasn't wealthy. He didn't carry large amounts of cash. If the man in black wanted to rob or attack Trevor, why wait? How did he dispose of a body so thoroughly? Theory 2. Accidental death. Perhaps Trevor wasn't murdered. Perhaps he had an accident. He was walking home alone at 4 a.m. It was dark. It was cold. He was wearing headphones, so his awareness was limited. Maybe he fell into the Grand Canal. Maybe he was hit by a car and the driver panicked and hid the body. Supporting evidence. The Grand Canal runs parallel to Trevor's route home. Accidental deaths are more common than murders. Counter evidence. The canal was searched extensively. Divers found nothing. If he was hit by a car, hiding the body on a public road is extremely difficult. The presence of the man in black suggests foul play. Theory 3. Trevor knew the man in black. What if the man in black wasn't a stranger? What if Trevor knew him? Maybe it was someone from work, someone from the party, someone with a grudge. Supporting evidence. The conversation at 3:35 a.m. appeared casual. Trevor went back inside the building after the conversation. Counter evidence. Investigators interviewed everyone in Trevor's life. No one matched the description. If Trevor knew him, why didn't he mention the encounter to anyone? Theory 4. Voluntary disappearance. This is the least popular theory. Maybe Trevor wanted to disappear. Maybe he was struggling with something and he walked away from his life. Counter evidence. Everything in Trevor's life suggested stability and happiness. He left no note, no sign of planning. Why would he stage his own disappearance and involve a mysterious stalker figure? This theory is almost universally rejected. Theory 5. The man in black was a red herring. What if the man in black had nothing to do with Trevor's disappearance? What if he was just someone walking home? Supporting evidence. It's possible. He was never identified. Counter evidence. The timing, the deliberate pacing, and the fact that he appeared twice. These are not coincidences. There are aspects of this case that don't fit neatly into any theory. Small details, strange coincidences, questions that investigators still can't answer. Detail 1. Why did Trevor go back inside the office after talking to the man in black? He was inside for 4 minutes. What did he do? Did he call someone? Did he wait for the man to leave? We don't know. Detail 2. Where did Trevor go between 3:39 a.m. and 4:14 a.m.? That's 35 minutes unaccounted for. The walk should have taken less than 10 minutes. So where was Trevor for the other 25 minutes? Did he stop somewhere? Did he encounter someone? No one saw him. No cameras captured him. Detail free. How did the man in black know Trevor would be at the office at 3:35 a.m.? Trevor's decision to return was last minute. How would anyone know he'd be there? Unless the man in black was following him already. From the party, to the pub, to the office. Which raises the possibility, was Trevor being stalked for hours before he disappeared? Detail 4. Why was Trevor wearing headphones? In the 4:14 a.m. footage, Trevor is clearly wearing headphones. This means he couldn't hear footsteps or someone approaching. It also suggests Trevor didn't feel threatened. Did he walk to his death completely oblivious? Detail 5. The umbrella. In some of the CCTV footage, the man in black appears to be carrying something, possibly an umbrella. It wasn't raining that night. Some investigators have speculated it was something else. A weapon perhaps. But the footage is too grainy to confirm. For over a decade, Trevor Deely's case remained open but inactive. The Gardaí had no new leads. The man in black remained unidentified. But in 2016, something changed. The case was officially reopened as part of a cold case review. New investigators were assigned. New technologies were applied. The CCTV footage was digitally enhanced and reanalyzed. And the Gardaí made a public appeal. The response was immediate. Hundreds of new tips poured in. New witnesses came forward, people who had been in the area that night.
One witness reported seeing a man matching Trevor's description, walking along Haddington Road around 4:30 a.m. Another reported seeing a dark-colored car parked suspiciously. But again, none of these leads went anywhere. The enhanced footage revealed new details about the man in black, his gait, his build, but it didn't reveal his identity. In 2017, the Gardaí conducted a massive search of a specific area in the Dublin mountains. Acting on a tip, they believed Trevor's body might have been buried there. They used cadaver dogs and ground-penetrating radar. They found nothing. The search was called off, and once again the case went cold. As of 2025, Trevor Deely's disappearance remains unsolved. He has been missing for over 24 years. He would be 46 years old now. Legally, he is presumed dead.
In 2013, his family was granted a death certificate, allowing them to settle his affairs and begin the process of accepting he is gone. The Gardaí maintain that the case is still active, but realistically, the chances of solving this case grow slimmer every year. Witnesses' memories fade, evidence degrades, time erodes everything. And yet, there are reasons to hope. DNA technology has advanced. Digital forensics have improved. In recent years, several cold cases in Ireland have been solved using these new technologies. Could the same happen for Trevor Deely? It's possible, but it requires something investigators don't have: new evidence. A body, a confession, a witness who finally decides to speak. Without one of those, this case will remain what it has been for over 2 decades, an agonizing mystery. For Trevor's family, the past 24 years have been a nightmare with no end. And Deely, Trevor's mother, passed away in 2023 without ever learning what happened to her son. She spent the last 2 decades of her life searching, hoping, praying for answers that never came. In her final interviews, she spoke about the unique cruelty of not knowing. She said that if he had died in an accident or even a crime where the perpetrator was caught, she could have grieved. But not knowing is torture. Because every day, there's a tiny sliver of hope that he'll walk through the door. And that hope makes it impossible to move on. Trevor's siblings have continued the fight. They have kept his case in the public eye. They refuse to let Trevor be forgotten. Because that's the other fear, that time will pass, and Trevor will become just another name in the archives. His family won't let that happen. They can't. If this case is ever solved, what would justice look like? For Trevor's family, justice would mean answers. It would mean knowing what happened. It would mean being able to bury Trevor. For the Gardaí, justice would mean identifying the man in black. It would mean giving closure to a family that has suffered for over 2 decades. For the public, justice would mean safety. But even if the case is solved, it won't undo the pain. It won't bring Trevor back. Justice, in cases like this, is always incomplete. It's better than nothing, but it's not enough. So what happened to Trevor Deely? The truth is, we don't know. We know he left his office at 3:39 a.m. on December 8, 2000. We know he was last seen on CCTV at 4:14 a.m., being followed by a man in black. And then, nothing. No body, no witnesses, no explanation, just silence. And silence, in a case like this, is the most haunting thing of all. Because somewhere, someone knows what happened. Maybe it's the man in black. Maybe it's a witness who stayed silent. Someone knows. And until that person speaks, Trevor Deely's disappearance will remain one of Ireland's most disturbing unsolved mysteries. The CCTV footage still exists. You can watch it online. Frame by frame, you can watch a young man disappear. And the question that haunts everyone who sees it is this: did Trevor know, in those final moments, that he was in danger? Did he sense it? Or did he walk forward into the dark, headphones on, completely unaware that he would never be seen again? We'll never know, unless the man in black finally speaks.